Good.
The unlawful use of force or violence against persons or property to intimidate or coerce a government, the civilian population, or any segment thereof in furtherance of political or social objectives. According to the FBI, that's the definition for terrorism. Good afternoon. My name is Rodney Melendez, and I'll be giving you a surface-level presentation on terrorism. On the agenda today, we'll discuss the WHO, the groups responsible for terrorist activity, how they conduct or carry out these attacks, why they do it, the different forms of terrorism, and I'll give you a few examples of some of their targets, domestic and international. WHO, religious extremists are a prime example to start with. Some examples are Al-Qaeda, which we know is a large umbrella organization, and their subordinates have been conducting attacks all over the world. We have Lebanese Hezbollah. Another well-known group but often not spoken about is the Jewish Defense League. In addition to that, we have bad state actors such as foreign governments. A lot of people in this room are old enough to remember, say for instance, Libya and their responsibility or their involvement in the downing of Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland. And then we have individuals or groups not tied to a larger umbrella organization who are also have been responsible for conducting terrorist attacks. A good example are the Weathermen of the 60s and 70s, and most recently the Unabomber Ted Kaczynski. How do they conduct these attacks? Terrorist attacks can be conducted in many different forms, such as assassinations, some memorable ones, John F. Kennedy, MLK, and most recently Benazir Bhutto in Pakistan. Bombings are another way to conduct terrorist attacks. Here in the United States, the World Trade Center in 1993, which was a precursor to September 11, 2001. Mass killings, Boko Haram, as well as ISIL are prime examples of terrorist activity that are taking place currently. And then we have kidnapping, some notable being Patty Hearst, and then more currently the activities we see taking place with the Somali pirates. Why? To gain attention for their cause. It could be for ideological reasons, whether it be religious beliefs or sympathizers. In addition to that, like what we're seeing with the kidnappings for ransom with the Somali pirates for personal gain. Some of the targets and the attacks that we've seen recently begin with the domestic targets of attacks. Oklahoma City bombing, Timothy McVeigh, 1995. Targeted the Oklahoma City Federal Building. You have the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, who for over 17 years continued to attack very important people in the technology industry, as he was very upset with some of the ideas they were putting forth. Then we have the Centennial Olympic Park attack, which took place during the Atlanta Olympics in 1996. The Wisconsin Sikh Temple attack is another form of religious extremism. Or attacks against religion. Other international targets and attacks include the Paris 2015 attacks that are still ongoing. September 11th attack, which I highlighted earlier. And then more historical attacks, such as the U.S. Embassy attack in Beirut and then Pan Am Flight 103. Another form of attack that's started to become more prevalent these days are cyber attacks or intrusions. They can be launched by individuals or by other governments against governments, financial institutions, or privately owned businesses and corporations. Some examples of these kind of attacks that we've seen recently were the Stuxnet virus that was launched by a few governments against Iran in order to degrade their nuclear program. We saw the Sony intrusions and the JP Morgan attack not too long ago, which compromised a lot of personal data. In conclusion, today we've defined terrorism, we've identified who conducts these types of attacks, why they do it, how the attacks are conducted, and the different forms of attacks. Do I have any questions? Excellent. Before you go, I'd like to leave you with this statement, which some of you are already aware of, is that terrorism affects us all, but what you need to be thinking about, whether at home or abroad, is what do you know and what can you do to potentially prevent the next terrorist attack. Thank you for your time. That's all I have.